that's just what we had chosen to focus on at that time, what we thought was our best plan. And there was a lot of talk about putting a culvert in on Valley View or Valley Vista.
So the 810 acres that's on your map, that's just an area of drainage, that there's no ownership implied here.
No, that's area of drainage. So anytime it rains, you have a flood event, that's the area that pours in through the property, and that's what's been flooding that community right now.
So the proposed ponding site, the 50 acres that you've outlined on the map, how does that fit into the parcel under consideration?
We would essentially, from this point, now that the analysis is done, we know what size of ponding would be required, and then we could allocate that based on Mr. Bolschweiler's analysis, what size of easement or physical parcel would need to be dedicated to accommodate those ponds.
And where is this on the parcel?
We would locate it after this discussion if that's something that is acceptable to the commission. So that we can do that, but it would be within Tract 4, that leftover 55, the entirety.
Say it again, Steve.
Good question, Mr. Chair. I guess this would be for staff. Wouldn't proposed ponding have to go back to the DRC for review as well?
We might, that could be one way of looking at it. Also, if the other way would be that if, in the case that the request is approved, that there might be a condition that the Flood Commission reviews the summary subdivision plat to ensure that whatever decisions made here, that it's reflected on that submittal, either through notes on the plat, some type of easements being depicted within Tract 4. Those are some of the options that I can think of.
So we're the first ones to hear this proposal.
I believe so.
And really, it should go to the Flood Commission before we hear it, shouldn't we? I mean, the problem is we're not experts in flooding. We would want that and I don't think we have any recommendation from them because this wasn't under consideration for the original proposal. I mean, what we have in front of us is a request to lower the paving standards. And now we have a completely different proposal in front of us with no staff analysis, actually at all.
I mean, that could be also another recommendation too. If the
No.
commission-
My recommendation would be to table this and
Yeah,
send
yes,
it to the
yeah.
Flood Commission
That's what I'm saying.
and back to you guys and back to the DRC.
If that's the wish of the commission, yeah, I mean, that could be an option, tabling it so that all the information can be presented to, flood, the flood department so they can give us back their comments, potentially taking it back to the DRC with that new information and coming back to the P&Z.
Yeah, see, this is beyond us, I think, at this point. You're giving us a new proposal.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this proposal even fits within the code for a modification request, does it, Albert?
I mean, it's an item, it's basically a trade-off, what you're asking for. If I get a modification to the road access standards, this is what I'm willing to do in order to, address the road conditions, issues that are out there. There's really, when you look at the rules and guidance, I guess, under the modification requirements, it's pretty limited. It's just those paragraphs that we saw. So it's pretty much open to anything. I mean, that's about the only guidelines that are there, basically following the variant decisional criteria.
Mr. Chair, if I may make a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
I believe the point you're getting at is that the proposal by the applicant it really needs to be reviewed for feasibility. What they're proposing to dedicate an area for to do flood control measures, really you need to have guidance from the Flood Commission as to whether or not that's even a feasible proposal before you can consider that option. And I tend to agree. I believe that you need to have an analysis and some type of recommendation as to whether or not that's a feasible approach before you can make a decision.
Christina, would it go back to the DRC as well? Or is that not under their purview?
Well, it's you know, what they will consider obviously is the modification request again. But I think it warrants review by the Flood Commission to determine if this proposal is even feasible.
Okay.
The DRC likely will not be able to make a recommendation on that. Essentially, compromise is what the applicant is asking for. That's not within the technical review committee's scope. But they can do an analysis and give a recommendation on whether or not the proposal to dedicate that property for flood control is a feasible and appropriate solution to the flooding in that area.
Okay. So your recommendation is to lower the paving standards, and as a result, actually, that's not a good idea, because we get into negotiations. That's not a good idea.
Mr. Chair, one question regarding the paving standards. If this commission were to eliminate the paving standards as you requested, who's responsible for maintaining that road? Who would be responsible for maintaining that road in the future?
Cristo Vista?
Pardon me?
The Cristo Vista, the one on the south side of it?
No, your proposed road development
Oh.
without any paving.
The users of that road. So we can
Would that
draft.
be in the form of a road maintenance agreement, or would that
Yes,
be-
we can do a maintenance agreement, whatever is acceptable to the county. Typically, that's a maintenance agreement of the property owners that own adjacent to and that the road passes through.
So I would just really advise the applicant to, to cover this question if this does come back to the,
Yes,
if it doesn't end up coming back to the Planning and Zoning Commission.
yes.
So, wait, so are you suggesting that he talk to the other property owners and get their agreement ahead of time, if possible?
I do believe a discussion does need to be had. I wouldn't say that a road maintenance agreement would need to be executed or signed at that time, but but there is a question, and if there is going to be an unpaved road in this development, somebody has to be responsible for maintaining it. And
Yes.
I think we'd really like to conclude on who that's going to be.
Yeah, and there are multiple users of that road that don't live on the property. The county is one of them. The maintenance road for that levee that is up north of the property uses that road right now to access it. So it'll be a benefit to have that in the maintenance agreement. You are speaking of that road that cuts through the property, right? Yeah. I was confused. I thought you were talking about Cristo Vista on the south. He's talking about what we did propose on improving, and that is still part of the proposal.
Those are private roads, basically.
Essentially, I mean, it cuts through the largest piece that's left over that's kind of sandwiched in the middle, and it cuts through there, but it is used quite frequently for maintenance right now. And so the parties that, right now, that would use it are the Livingstons and then the county, and that's it for now. Just those two parties. And I do want to add to, you're looking at the code and going in front of the DRC. Our opinion is the way that the code is worded right now does kind of hogtie the DRC from doing any kind of modification, because we have to go in with something to modify that's in the design standards, and that's road. I mean, we're not asking for a modification to design standards for ponding. We are trying to negotiate some type of something else. So it might be of benefit, and I may need to discuss with my client for a minute or two on what she wants to do. But from the way we read the code, it seemed like the proper authority rested with the BOCC as far as negotiation, and that denying this might be the proper thing to do at this point. Just because it seems like you're limited with the way that the code is written now to even do something like this. And we're in full agreement that we would work in concert with the Flood Commission. I do a lot with Michael, and we did pass this in front of Renee, the idea, after the DRC meeting, because we don't want to just come in here and give an idea that, sounds and looks good, possibly. We want it to be a good idea, and we want it to help the community. We don't want to do it if it's just going to be, earmarking a piece of property for nothing. We want it to improve the area. And any type of small improvement will be greatly improved, for its longevity if the drainage issues in this area are fixed. If they go in and blade a road just with your standard motor grader and put gravel on it, it's going to last a lot longer after these improvements are done than it would if these ponds are not put in place. to us, it just seems like a ground zero solution for the community. It's the first part I mean, the ponds aren't going to be built overnight. I know that. But getting the property is the first step. And so, yes, I do think it's appropriate. But if it's not something that this commission can do, then we need to be talking with the commission that can negotiate on that. And that's our position right now, and currently what I've discussed with Ms. Livingston. So I can discuss with her now for a minute or so and see if she wants to change direction.
Well, the problem is, I don't even know if we can negotiate this. I don't know if that's within our power. We have a
What-
request in front of us,
Yes.
and the issue is whether we should table that request while we wait for input from the Flood Commission. But even at that point, I'm not sure we can negotiate it, because we're substituting one thing for another.
My personal opinion is I don't think you can. From what I've read, I don't think you can do that based on this. I think that you have to give a ruling based on our last modification request. This is just, I want to be open and inform the commission and everyone that we're speaking about what our intention is, even if it's not in the form of a request. That's where we are, and that's what she's focusing on. So if the best move is to deny it so that we can speak to the BOCC, then we need to do that. That would be what we would want.
Let me hear, are you representing the property owner?
I am.
Do you know, did they want to speak?
Would you like to speak, Ms. Livingston?
I'm sorry, y'all.
It's okay.
I can't hear real well, so I haven't really kept track of what y'all are saying. Getting old.
It's okay. Janine's going to swear you in.
Please raise your right hand and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Carol Meyer Livingston. I'm currently residing in Ruidoso Dam. Excuse me?
Your address, please?
Oh, my address, 1000 North Valley Vista in La Union, 88021.
Raise your right hand. She's going to swear you in.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you are about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
Yes, ma'am. I do want to add that I have a second residence in Ruidoso Downs.
Okay, perfect.
And yes,
Okay,
Proceed.
thank you. Go ahead.
okay. I purchased this property a long time ago, like in 1988 from the Nature Conservancy. And my thought was it was just such a gorgeous piece of property that being in the lumber business, the building business in El Paso, and working with Judy Price way back in El Paso on the plan, oh gosh, I don't even remember which plan it was. It was before 2000. I learned a lot of really neat things. Keeping the desert wild, keeping the natural places natural. You know, the subdividing, we do a lot of density and regular subdivisions for probably 95% of the population. But it's real important to keep these recreational areas with the beautiful views, the big natural arroyos, horseback riding, walking, just going out there in their vehicles and spending time. This is one of those places. This is not a place that I bought to make $1 million in my old age. This is just a place that's been something that I kind of want to preserve. I'd like to see a watershed, like we have a watershed district that was recently formed in La Union by the Doña Ana County Soil and Water. Now, I don't know why, but it does not include this Alvarez Dam, nor does it include the big Gardner Dam that I believe we're going to breach, because it was one of those dams that typically, over the last 50 years, the farming community has blocked the water from coming down, and you can't take it. You can't just put that water through the farms and let the washout ruin the farmland. You can't dump it into the irrigation system. you can't get it to the river like it naturally wants to go. So I think what people have done in the past is try to make these ponds and make these areas where you can have a watershed. It's not just one little arroyo, because that arroyo moves. But this is a 50-acre parcel that I'm proposing back in the southwest portion that we could do a bit of a watershed. Now, there's two big major arroyos that come off the bluffs. Other than the one that goes down to the Alvarez Dam, which is right behind the Rock Ranch property, this is another great big one. And it has two big branches, and then there's another branch that comes down, goes into Macarena. And when we had that great big flood that floated railroad containers around the land that's in just directly below the bluffs, it floated their railroad container across the arena. It caused tremendous amount of damage. Y'all are probably quite aware of what happens up in La Union, but they're down Alvarez Road and a lot of these areas that have the big runoffs. We've got to do something with that land. From the time that I spent in La Union watershed, we can't just put it down to the river. We've got to stop the flow of water and replenish the aquifer. That's the only thing that I know to do. I know flood control can't just build dams on everything, even though we did get a huge amount of money from the federal government. I don't know what'll end up here. I don't know the answer. I do know that from what I'm planning to do, which would be to sell my little horse ranch out there and try to build a smaller house that would be more age appropriate. I don't want to do a big development out there. I'd like to provide a few lots for people that do want to live out in a very rural area. And rural areas with large lots, just economically, you just can't afford to pave and to put the responsibility for the paving that'll benefit 20, 30, 50 people on one piece of property.
So the problem that I see is that you want to steward the land, you want to take care of the land, but what happens after you're gone and the property is sold to someone and they divide the property up into 30, 40, 50, 60, 100 lots, and the road's not paved, the drainage may be solved, but the density then is much higher than it is today. So a question that I have is, have you considered putting the property into a conservation easement?
You know, before that would happen, whoever wanted to divide again would be in front of you all again.
Yep.
And should it be that type of density? You know, I've seen the rules change since '88. They changed major in '96, and then with the planning and zoning and the UDC, we've had a number of major changes. Whatever future development would happen will come again, and we'll have to comply with the current laws that we will be facing at this time.
Yep.
I'm asking for a horse property to be divided. I'd like to put 2 additional lots on Cristo Vista. There's quite a bit of development in that area. There are new houses being built all the time. I'd love to see y'all enforce the regulation about just not totally grading the lot. One of the big problems on Valley Vista, besides that arroyo, is that 7,000 square foot house that's being built, that they totally graded everything, and now the dirt, the sand just totally blows off. And so many people, they buy property and they don't know what the grading regulations are. I'd like to see more enforcement on the laws that we do have and count on the future development going through you all and meeting the appropriate challenges at the time. Those developers would be the one that would be in a position to afford culverts and paved roads.
Okay. Anybody else have a question? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Is there anyone here opposed to the proposal? No? Okay. Well, I'm open to suggestions on how we want to proceed on this. Yes, sir.
I'm just getting my stuff.
Okay.
Do you have any more
Mr.
questions?
Chair. I do have a couple of questions for staff here. First, I would really, moving forward, especially with the DRC, I would love to see a more, I guess I would really appreciate to see a more in-depth description on why the DRC, voted to deny the request. I would love to have seen more of their general concerns. The county fire administration does note here that the subdivision needs to show that they can meet fire flow requirements for 1 to 2 family dwellings. These proposed, this proposed subdivision here could potentially accommodate more than a 1 to 2 family dwelling. It's possible that there would be multiple family dwellings on one parcel if that's allowed in a T2 zoning. So, of course, I do would like to know more about the county fire administration. I do agree with, with their concern as far as fire apparatus access, to meet the current standard. They reference the 2015 International Fire Code. Would also consider, and what you just brought up, Mr. Chair, is the NMDOT does list their concerns. There's insignificant impact to the statewide highway system if there are only 5 lots. However, that would have to come for further review, and there is quite. I do see a lot of potential for further subdividing of this parcel in the future, and it could potentially happen a lot sooner. So those are just a couple of concerns that I wanted to know, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Chair, just a quick comment. So just keep in mind that today, they're only seeking the modification request. If it is approved or conditionally approved, they still have to go through the review process for the summary subdivision. So just because the road modification request is approved here today, that doesn't mean that the plat's already automatically approved. They still have to go through the review process for that. So just, pointing that out.
Thank you.
So probably the best thing to do here is to deal with the specific request and then let it move forward. Okay.
That's correct, yes.
If there's no other discussion, I'll need a motion.
So it's difficult.
Mr. Chair,
Dan?
I'd like to make a motion based on staff analysis and their recommendation that we would approve case number SD 21-055.
Fernie seconded the motion. So we have a motion to approve the request. Can you call, if there's no further discussion, can you call a roll, please?
Chair, just real quick, along with that motion, are you also, at the end of my presentation, I had, if the PMZ wanted to approve, this is the recommendation that staff was providing. Do you want to include that on your motion, or is it just the?
Wait, say it again.
Under
Yeah.
staff recommendation, we have one condition if the PNZ recommended approval. That condition being that any future subdivision of the property, including a claim of exemption, will require the applicant to provide improved road access as required pursuant to section 350-403 and 350-602 of the Unified Development Code.
Okay. Dan, is that all right with you?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I would that would be part of the motion.
And Fernie, it's okay with you? Okay.
It's good with me.
Okay, so we accept the condition.
So roll call for the motion. Commissioner Castañeda? Commissioner Zarges?
No.
Commissioner Montañez?
No.
Commissioner Lear?
No.
Commissioner Herrera?
Yes.
Commissioner Acosta?
Mel, we need your vote. Mel, your microphone is muted. What if he- Jeez. Mel, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, no.
Okay, thank you, Mel.
And Chair Zerniak?
Did you get Commissioner Zargis? Okay, no. So what's the vote, please? No, I think
It'll be,
it's-
the vote is 2 yes, 5 noes.
Okay, so the motion is denied. I think my suggestion is to get with staff, discuss this, get the flood commission to take a look at it, okay? Thank you very much. All right, new business, case number Z 22005.
For our second case today, Commissioners, actually what I did, because it's the zone change and the SUP, they're both for the same property. I basically had one PowerPoint presentation, so I'll be presenting both cases at the same time.
Let me just state that we're talking about case SU 22008, right?
Yes,
Case SU 22008, thank you.
and, okay.
You're first?
Aubrey Casillas, 845 North Motel Boulevard.
You swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth under penalty of law.
I do. So just so we're clear, under new business, we have 2 cases. We got the Z22005 and the SU 22008. They both go hand in hand because it is a zone change and an SUP together for this proposal. And basically on the PowerPoint, towards the end, I'll have 2 sets of recommendations and staff findings. The first one will be the zone change, and the second one will be the SUP, and the commission will make a vote on each separately. So but I figured because instead of having 2 PowerPoints, we'll just do one, and then have 2 separate votes at the end for this proposal. So our agenda item today for 5A and 5B, it's a request for a zone change and a special use permit on a 87.45 acre parcel, going from a D1L to a T2 zoning district. And this is in order to allow a 50-acre solar generating facility to be known as a Soltage Community Solar Project. The applicant would be Mr. Joseph Priestley. That's the owner, my apologies. And Mark Miller is one of the applicants. This property is located on 7540 Stern Drive. This is south of Las Cruces. It's basically west of where the I-10 and I-25 meet, south of those pecan orchards. That's where it's at. And the zoning is D1L. So here we have a location map for this request. We have a I-10 right here. We got a Main Street, South Main Street over here. This would be, I believe it's East Oregon Road out here. Stern Drive. The access on here, Mr. Priestley, he basically owns all these lots right here. He owns all of them. There is a gate right here. You can see that there's a traveled road out here, kind of heading towards the property. There's also a utility easement from El Paso Electric that basically, travels north and south through the property here. That easement starts, this is East Oregon, and you can see that the power poles go all the way up through here. But I'll show you some pictures and some aerials in a bit. So this would be the property itself. So you got the pecan trees all around here. More pecan trees here to the south in the little residential area. Mr. Priestley, he owns all these lots. You can kind of see where the gate is here on Stern Drive. So that would be the proposed access to this property right here. The utility easement for the power poles that are out there, you can kind of see them through here. But that's basically where they're at. The zoning map, basically everything around it is D1L. When you look at the southern properties, it's a combination of D1L and transit zoning. So you have the T2 zoning right immediately south, T3 right south of there, of the subject parcel. So the request is to create a 50-acre solar facility. This project would include up to 16,000 solar modules rated at 415 watts and mounted on single-axis trackers that move as the sun moves east to west. This will be developed in a single phase, and the design life of the project is anticipated to be up to 40 years. So the new access road will need to be developed to access the site for construction and for long-term maintenance of the facility, and this is going to be from Stern Drive. It will require approval of New Mexico DOT, and also it's going to have to meet the access standards for the county fire marshal. And this is just to make sure that the road's adequate enough to handle, those emergency vehicles. So community solar, I got this from the New Mexico Public Regulation Commission, and I'm sure, the applicant might have a little bit more information of what it entails. But basically, this is a program that got signed into law of last year. This was called the Community Solar Act, or SB 84. This was signed by Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham, but per the New Mexico Public Regulation Commission, it's a community solar program promotes participation in renewable energy solutions by allowing electric utility customers to purchase shares in a renewable energy facility to offset their monthly energy consumption, often via a credit on their monthly utility bills or by purchasing or leasing a portion of the solar panels in an array. That's basically what that Solar Act entails. A community-based solar project might benefit individuals, businesses, nonprofits, and other groups who would not otherwise have access to energy from solar installations. Community solar allows for equal access to the economic and environmental benefits of solar energy generation, regardless of the physical attributes or ownership of an individual's home or business. So this is coming from the website of the PRC Commission. On their proposed site plan, so basically out of the 87 acres that are there, they're mostly going to be located on the southern portion of the subject parcel. So this is what the facility is going to look like once it's, if it's approved and it's built out. Here's just a zoom out of the subject parcel. Once again, you got Main Street over here, Stern Drive, and this is where the proposed access will be. And then you have East Oregon down here on the south. And really, because the property was so large, I really couldn't get a good picture of it, but this is just looking at it from the entrance there on Stern Drive. It's basically going to be all that area that's down here. So on the properties that are also owned by Mr. Priestley, he's got that cell tower there, and there's a home outside as well. And then when we drive down to East Oregon Road, these are the power poles that kind of go through all those properties into the subject parcel. When we're looking at the zone change evaluation requirements, we got to look at section 203. For notifications for both the zone change and the SUP, we sent out letters. Legal ads were placed on the Sun News and signs were posted on the property. And, this is a picture that they sent me when they were out there posting the signs. And those properties that were notified. When it comes to potential number of homes, no homes are being proposed. There's really not going to be any impact to population with the proposed use. No impact to demographics. Potential traffic flows, it's just going to be those 3 to 5 months when they're out there during construction. The proposed community solar project is neither commercial nor residential. As an unstaffed utility, it will not affect existing commercial or residential activity. Water is going to be trucked in for construction, operation, and maintenance. The project will not require any sewer facilities. There's going to be portable toilets out there during the construction phase and then removed after construction. There's also going to be little impact of the existing infrastructure capacities in the area of the project. There's no sewer or water facilities that are being proposed. The transportation network will see only a temporary impact during construction. The project will connect to the existing electric utility infrastructure and provide additional electricity to the area. When it comes to environmentally sensitive areas, this project did undergo environmental evaluations in January of 2022. Adverse environmental impacts have not been identified with the implementation of the proposed project and applied environmental protection measures. A Class 1 cultural resources review was completed on the proposed site, and pursuant to state law, cultural sites located on private land are not under the jurisdiction of the New Mexico Historic Preservation Division, except in the event of discovering a gravesite and its associated artifacts. So the project does not include federal land, and a federal nexus has not been identified, and therefore will not be required to adhere to laws promulgated under the NEPA Act. So impacts to surrounding properties. We believe that there's really not going to be any significant impact on surrounding properties. It's currently surrounded by agricultural and low-density residential uses. For implementation of best management practices for the development, the applicant's preventative maintenance plan includes triennial site visits. So there's going to be, they're going to be checking on the property every year. On an annual basis, all electrical equipment is inspected in further detail, with electrical terminations and connections being carefully checked for corrosion, tightness, and thermal imaging excess heat during the operation. So we do believe that the zone change in itself meets this section of the decisional criteria for zone changes. When we look at the comprehensive plan, there's a couple of strategy goals and principles that are being called out. We got the livability principle for community affordability, and this is basically making decisions that support more diverse and affordable communities across the region. Other affordable communities indicators, affordability has other elements for which data are not yet available on a county-wide basis, but would be worth tracking, including affordable housing developments, workforce housing near jobs, utility costs, and infrastructure costs. One of the things under the Act is that there is a stipulation in there that at least 30% of people or businesses participating on the community solar project, at least 30% have to be low income. They need at least 10 different participants. Those are the minimum requirements, but 30% of that has to be either families that are considered low income or businesses that are dedicated to helping out low income families. Strategy number 3, this is prioritize infrastructure planning and investment. Renewable energy, the county should coordinate and incentivize the development of renewable energy to achieve greater efficiency and capitalize upon the region's solar energy resources. So this is under strategy 3 of the comp plan. We got goals 6.2, make the county's economy more efficient. The county should provide resources and support to help households and businesses lower monthly expenses, save and bank money, create wealth, weather a volatile economy, and increase businesses and home ownership. And then also a goal G2.2, ensure regulations supporting the plan requirements. So when it comes to Miller, so when we're looking at a change of conditions or making any amendment that may cover and perfect previous defective ordinances, currently, the only use zone allowing for a renewable energy facility would be an I-1, light industrial. So we feel that a transit zone such as a T2, which is more compatible with the surrounding D1L and T3 zoning designations, and then along with the special use permit would be more appropriate for the request, since T2 is still low-density residential and only allows for a minimum lot size of 2 acres. So instead of, having the applicant submit for an I-1, which could potentially open it up to other more intensive uses under the industrial category, we're just proposing them to submit the T2 designation, to submit for a T2 along with the SUP. The SUP in itself will only allow the proposed solar facility, requiring any, it's going to require a new application if there's any future expansions on there. So basically, they're only capped at that specific use with the T2 zone and the SUP approval. The zone change is appropriate as there is compatible existing residential development and zoning designations and is reasonably necessary to protect the public interest in providing community affordability, promoted even further by the passage of the Community Solar Act of SB 84.
I'm sorry, Albert, if you can just elaborate a little bit further. Your explanation here is concerning the Miller criteria that a T2 with a special use permit does either meet or exceed the I-1 requirement for a solar operation this big?
Yes, if the applicant was to come in here and apply for an I-1, I think staff would probably consider that a spot zone, big time, because it would be an industrial zoning designation in the middle of D1 and T2 and T3.
An I-1 would also allow for other type of industrial operations.
That's correct, light manufacturing.
that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So for our findings, which are included in your packet, we're basically saying that the T2 request satisfies the decisional criteria for zone change, and that the zone change is appropriate and reasonably necessary to protect the public interest. And like I said before, the only option under the use zones would be an I-1, but we're proposing the applicant to go for the T2 with the SUP, as the T2 would be more compatible with the surrounding land use designations that are there. So it'd be more compatible. The D1 allows single-family residential on lots of 1 acre or greater, while the T2 zoning, it's a rural transit area, but you're only allowed to go to a minimum of 2 acres. So basically, they're giving up 1 acre lots for 2 acre lots as well under the T2 designation. The zone change to a T2 would not be considered a spot zone, and also there's no significant conflict with the comprehensive plan. Also, they're meeting those goals and actions and strategies and principles that I stated before. So for the zone change, staff is recommending approval to go from D1L to a T2 in order to allow the 50-acre facility known as Soltage Community Solar Project. That's our recommendation for the zone change. So let me go ahead and talk about the decisional criteria right now for the SUP. Basically, for the decisional criteria, it's similar to what the zone change has. We talked about potential traffic flows and the need for a new commercial or residential activity. We already talked about the potential water and sewer needs. So basically, because it's an unmanned facility, those are going to be minimal. There's really going to be no impact to existing infrastructure capacities other than having more additional electricity being provided to the area. Really, there was no evidence of any environmentally sensitive areas being affected. And we talked about that and all the analysis that were, that the applicant did. Impact to the surrounding areas, we're still saying that there's not going to be any significant impacts to the surrounding properties. And the implementation of best management practices, the applicant has already stated that they go out there and check on the facility, 3 times a year for some of the issues, and at least on an annual basis to check all the electrical equipment. So for our findings, we believe that the SUP in itself also meets the decisional criteria for special use permits. A renewable energy facility requires a special use permit in a T2 zone. The applicant will need to obtain approval of the zone change before he gets the approval of the SUP. And a community solar facility will benefit existing residential developments, as it is a renewable energy source that has legislative approval through that Senate bill. We are recommending conditional approval for the SUP. Basically, that the applicant needs to obtain that zone change approval. We're also requesting that a solid wall or fence 6 to 8 feet high shall be constructed around the perimeter of the facility. A remediation and decommissioning of site plan shall be submitted at the time of building permit submittal. The plan includes the following. So basically, it's those points that are in your analysis. Basically, we're saying that if at any point in time, the facility stops operating, this is what you need to do in order to clean up the property. Some of the measures on there include provisions for the removal of all structures and foundations, removal of all electrical transmission components, restoration of soil and vegetation, and a solid-based plan ensuring financial resources will be available to fully decommission the site. So basically, it talks about the removal of equipment and restoring the site back. Those are our recommendations for the SUP. Just to go back a little bit, for the zone change, we're recommending approval. And for the SUP, we're also recommending conditional approval as long as they meet those conditions.
So I have 2 quick questions. Number one, the request is to approve the zone request and the SUP on the whole parcel, 87 acres, but we're only talking about a 50-acre solar farm.
That's one of the things that we clarified with the applicant and the property owner. But the applicant, we do have a written statement that he has no issues with obtaining the zone change for the entire parcel. So that way it won't be a split zone. And also, if in the future, if the applicant wished to expand on the solar facility, they wouldn't need to obtain a zone change all over again. They would just have to go through a special use permit,
An additional one.
an additional special use permit.
So is your recommendation to only approve the SUP on the implication is we're approving the SUP on the 50 acres, not the full parcel?
Yeah, so keep in mind, the SUP will go with the entire property,
Okay,
but they're going to be limited to the site plan that they're proposing. So that's how they would be capped.
okay.
So if they were to come in and now we see like another 20 acres being proposed, that would be a whole new submittal.
Okay. And second question, staff recommendation number 2 says a solid wall or fence 6 to 8 feet high shall be constructed. And on the next page, your decommissioning plan says that the chain link fencing to be removed. So are you recommending a chain link fence?
No, this plan right here actually came from the applicant's submittal, but they can go either way. If it is a chain link fence, they have to cover it up, so you can.
Oh, they do?
They do, yes.
Okay, so it's interesting. Is that the UDC that's requiring that? Or is that what the applicant proposed?
That's what we're requiring.
That's what
That's
you're
right.
requiring, okay. All right. I'm thinking about the solar farm that the university just put in. The fence is not solid. They wanted to be able to see what was going on. Okay, as long, if it's a requirement of the code, it's a requirement of the code. Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Dan.
maybe this is a question for the applicant, but, so this 50 acres is going to produce quite a bit of electricity. And maybe this is a side issue, but I'm just curious as to how are they going to transport the electricity out of this facility to wherever it's going to be consumed?
I'll let the applicant handle that.
Okay.
That question.
Very nice to meet you all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Wait a second. Hold on.
We do have an applicant present, so it's either, whoever's on the WebEx.
Okay, hold on just a second. Okay, so are we done with Albert?
Yes.
Okay, so, we-
I'm fine with that.
whichever applicant wants to speak, you have to be sworn in first. So who's going to speak, Mr. Miller or the person that's in the room?
Mr. Miller will speak.
Okay, so let's get him up on the screen. And Janine, you want to swear him in, please?
Please state your name and address for the record.
We need your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, my name is Mark Miller. It's Marcmiller. My address is 9 Centennial Drive, Danbury, Connecticut, 06811.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
I do, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You may proceed.
So the project will be interconnecting to El Paso Electric's distribution network, which is to the east of the site. It abuts the site. The electricity will be connected, and we actually have proceeded with a interconnection application, and we have proceeded with the interconnection impact study that is required by the utility, which is El Paso. So we're connecting directly to El Paso. They're taking the power. And then what actually happens is that the customers that are participating in the program, be it primarily residential customers, and there will be, as you heard earlier, a carve out for low-income customers ranging from as low as 30% to as high as 50% of the participants being low income, they'll be actually receiving a credit on their bill. So no physical interconnection happens between the solar facility and the customer. This is actually virtual, and it's considered to be a community solar program where the electricity is sent to the utility directly. The utility credits the customer on their monthly bill with a discount or a credit, if you will, and then the customer remits back to Soltage a percentage of that credit. So net, the customer will receive a discount. We're anticipating that the discount will be based off of a discount to their retail rate, less distribution costs. So they'll get a net discount on their bill, which is really important today, as we see across most of the states in the country. Utility rates are going up, just like we're seeing with all commodities going up due to inflation. I hope that satisfies that question.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Miller, can you explain how people buy into this?
Sure. So the way that this would work is that there'll be a application a subscriber agreement that the customer will sign, and the subscriber agreement will say that that customer will receive a discount to their rate based on X percent, whatever is negotiated. The legislation is very sensitive to low-income customers, and the awards are based upon giving a larger discount to low-income customers. So typically, in order to get an award, you're probably going to have to offer customers a discount of 20 to 30% off of their utility bill. So it's something where they sign a subscription agreement, which then beholds or requires that the developer provide a discount rate to the customer. And our view is to do this off of the tariff. There'll be a community solar tariff rate, and our view is that we would peg that to a discount off that rate, off the retail rate.
So do they pay you a certain amount of money to buy into the system?
No, ours requires no capital investment by the customer. All that it requires is that the customer enter into a subscription agreement and commit to, in essence, the way this works is they're reimbursing us a percentage of the credit value. They get 100% of the credit value on their bill, and then they remit back to us 70, 80% of that value. So in essence, they're earning a 20 to 30% discount, but they are not required to make any capital investment into our projects, zero. And we're the long-term asset owner as well. That's just a noteworthy point.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, thanks.
I've got a question.
Oh, Fernie?
Sorry.
Sure.
Yes, sir. Who can buy into it? Just the residents around the area or countywide?
It's a very good question. So anyone that's within El Paso service territory, because that's where our facilities is proposed, would be able to participate in it. Our focus is going to be on residential customers and small general service customers. That would be small commercial customers. But our focus is really going to be on residential customers almost entirely.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else that wants to speak on behalf of the project? Okay, no one? All right, let me check the other side. Is there anyone that wants to speak in opposition to the project? Okay, I'll close it to audience participation and open it to commission discussion. Any discussion, questions, or comments? Yeah,
Pretty much answered my question
okay.
about the T.
Well, I guess we could, so I'll entertain a motion on Z 22005, the zone change request.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve case number Z22-005 based on staff analysis, findings of fact, and testimony given today. I would also like to add the conditions recommended by staff. Give me just a second to.
No, wait,
Yeah, there were no conditions on the zone.
Oh, I'm sorry, the zone change, no conditions. Yes, okay. Thank you. That completes my motion. Thank you.
okay, so you're recommending approval based on findings of fact. Okay. Can I get a second?
Second.
Fernie or Bill? Any further discussion? All right, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Herrera? Commissioner Lear?
Yes.
Commissioner Montañez?
Yes.
Commissioner Zarges?
Yes.
Commissioner Castañeda?
Yes.
Commissioner Acosta?
Mel, turn on your mic.
Commissioner Acosta?
Yes. Yes.
Chair Zerniak?
Yes. All right. Case SU 22-008. I need a motion.
Mr. Chair, just, I would like to ask one question to
Okay.
staff on that. There is a note here from the Flood Commission. Any commercial development would require grading and drainage plan stamped out and sealed by a professional engineer. Has that already been submitted, or is this going to be, does this fall into the commercial development?
So that would specifically be addressed during the building permitting
Okay.
process.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I need a motion on the special use permit.
I'll move approval of special use permit 22-008 based on the findings of fact as presented
And there's conditions
and with the conditions as presented,
as stated, okay, by staff.
as stated.
All right. A second, please? Commissioner Castaneda seconded the motion. Call the roll.
Commissioner Montañez,
Yes.
Commissioner Lear,
Yes.
Commissioner Herrera, Commissioner Acosta,
Mel,
Mel, come back to us.
Okay, yes.
Commissioner Zarches,
yes.
Commissioner Castañeda,
Yes.
and Chair Zerniak.
Yes, motion is approved. Thank you very much. Item number 6, administrative approvals. None? Okay. Any staff input?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, Albert, to cut in. I just wanted to announce that Sean Vick has been promoted to County Building Official / Assistant Director.
Congratulations, sir.
Right on.
We're very excited to finally have that
Yep.
position filled again.
Congratulations, Sean. It's well-deserved.
And I also wanted to mention that we have student interns working with us in the department, and we have 2 present who have been observing, Noah and Liam, who are happily, or at least I hope they're happily working for us for a few weeks.
I'm going to
Welcome
have him
aboard.
present our next case.
Yes. I hope you guys took good notes.
Just help me. You were both interns, weren't you, at one time? I mean, this is like decades ago.
Well, I was an intern with you, who we contracted with Judy on a comp plan
Okay. Oh, that's right. That's
before
right.
my hire.
Okay. And Albert, you were an intern somewhere.
Sun and Park. I
Okay.
think that's where you sent me.
Okay.
So,
I don't know if that was a punishment
Mr. Chair,
or.
that means you were here decades ago. as
Oh,
well.
yeah, at least. Yeah. All right. Commission input, anybody?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to just a really, really quick discussion before adjournment. I do know there was at the BOCC meeting, there was quite a bit of concern regarding a cannabis farm on Valley Drive. I would like to potentially either schedule a work session or just some kind of discussion. And the reason why is this particular parcel is agriculture designation. And we're seeing a lot of, we are going to start to see more cases where ag designation that's pretty close to residential developments is going to spark a lot of concerns. And I really would just, I think the end goal in this discussion or work session is really to how to address those concerns as they're coming to us. This one in particular, I did receive quite a bit of correspondence on it. I know the Board of Commissioners did as well. So want to be able to explain to any residents exactly how this, how this process does happen. Probably the biggest, a lot of them were under the assumption that this was approved either by the Planning and Zoning Commission or the Board of Commissioners themselves.
So you want a work session?
I don't know if a work session would be necessary or if, but I do believe as the cannabis concept continues and we're starting to see more and more cases that, that we are just having brief, further discussions on how to, just how to handle different situations, because this one is pretty unique.
Yeah. Okay.
And it doesn't have to be right away, but I do feel this is, that we are going to see concerns specifically like this one in the future.
It's coming.
Yes, Chair and Commissioner Montañez, it is coming. I don't know if at this point we would probably entertain scheduling one because I don't know what the outcome's going to be on the one that I think you're concerned about. So I think us as staff, we would have to talk amongst ourselves and talk with the assessor's office and see, where we're at when it comes to our own policies. So once we clear that up and kind of see where the outcome of that specific case is, turns out to be, then I think we can probably schedule something then and there. Because I don't want to bring something up or refer an issue that might come before this P&Z that could potentially come.
So if a parcel is zoned one way, but assessed by the assessor another way as ag, does that, which takes precedence, the assessment or the zoning?
It's going to be the assessment. If we go back to, October, November, when the P and Z made a recommendation, and then if we go back to December, when the BOCC adopted the cannabis amendments, there were some changes there. But basically, the major change was that if any property was assessed as ag, no matter what the zoning was, then they were able to cultivate cannabis. So that was one of the changes that happened there. And since then, people have been, obtaining business registrations or applying at the state for cannabis growth. And, as soon as, fences start popping up, then we start getting calls from neighbors. It's like, hey, how come we weren't notified, or what's happening now? And it's like, well, it's something that's allowed by right currently on properties that have that ag assessment, so. But I think once we clear up those details with other departments and everybody's on the same page, I think we can probably schedule.
So, so an interesting question for the GIS staff would be to find out where that conflict exists. Just so that we know where the potential is. And if it's, is the potential big or little? Is it going to be a big problem or a little problem?
Yeah, I think we might already have those maps. I think Frank Dodd, our GIS analyst, he created a bunch of those maps when we were discussing that.
Maybe
And-
the simple thing to do, Albert, is to check and bring that before us at the end of the next meeting if you can.
Okay,
And that would partly address Steve's concern so we can see what we're facing.
sure. Also, we have 2 orders before the end of the meeting, or after the meeting.
Okay. Anything else? We'll stand adjourned. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.